piece of advice, I think what I would say is that don't get caught up in this idea that you have to be doing your best piece of work every year for the next 10 years. I mean, I get into this. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not achieving, I'm not doing this. And then I read Frida Kahlo's biography, and in her lifetime, she only had one solo show, and that really amazed me. And I was like, wow, actually, I have to start kicking myself. And then, Sylvia Plath as well is one of my favourite writers. She released one book of poetry and one novel in her lifetime, which isn't actually, it's not a lot really, but they're these huge big figures. So I think it's really important that as women, we really, we need to move away from sort of not bringing ourselves down, but really kind of buying into this idea that we need to be, constantly,
There's actually something about this I would quite like to add. Like, I've been looking at this a lot. This, at least from my personal experience, growing up in sector in my environment, I feel this constant career anxiety that whether I'm doing well enough. And also from my peers, I grew up in an environment where there's a lot of my peers are male, just because the way my parents led my lifestyle, I wasn't going to one school consistent. I moved a lot of schools, and I find that I do share this particular anxiety with all my male peers as well, but they just seem to have a little bit less of this legitimacy of wanting to be successful. And my urge was, I don't really know why, but my urge was always to be perfect, so to be good at what I do. So I don't necessarily take as much career risks or personal risks because I don't want to appear not doing well as a woman. So I end up exhausting myself. Am I doing enough solo shows? Am I doing enough? Am I So there was a lot of that kind of anxiety.
Chill.
Certainly the pressure of the ideals or perfectionism is something to be mindful of, and that and before we met you all, we also had a chat about not necessarily doing what I've done and going into academia over just going out and doing it. I did it to myself so that I could get into the system, but I don't think it's the only way, and I think that it's but then also to be prepared that when you are in it, you'll face we're luckier that we're in the UK. I mean, it could be worse for us. It could always be worse. So, I mean, on that level, you've got a lot that you can do, and you will meet a lot of receptive people. So to those young students who are starting, it would be, or to anyone who's starting in the industry, it would be like, be prepared to just work really hard, and that is whether you're male or female, or whichever gender you identify with. If you want something, you're going to have to do it. But I like the idea that we don't work to the point of just producing for the sake of production, because that's certainly, I would totally agree that I consider what's my next thing, or what should I do.
I mean, I think the thing that I've noticed with social media, for example, as well, it's opened up a lot more voices for female artists. Where necessarily they're not going through a traditional route, but the work is still out there and people are having conversations, they're just not doing it in a kind of traditional hierarchical environment. And I think that shift is going to be quite interesting to see how that changes the perception of women's work and also access to women's work.
So the advice would be
don't worry about going through traditional channels.
So just keep making.
Just do, is what I'm saying.
Go do it.
No, I like doers as well. What advice? Good Lord, I don't feel qualified. But I do think that I'm literally in therapy right now for dealing with my confidence issues. I'm sharing. I overshare. Yeah. It's a problem. And I went there thinking, I'll do 6 weeks of therapy, iron out some things. 20 weeks later, You know, a lot of stuff comes up. I think work on that, your self-confidence, your self-validation, self-love, and living authentically. And if you can do that, you're unstoppable, I think.
Okay.
The point of the therapy is really interesting. I'm also doing psychoanalysis at the
Yeah.
minute, and I think that it's a luxury, but the moment you can actually take a moment to be self-reflexive about your position, to also know when you're complicit in something, or when you're participating in maybe even patriarchy, or what we are all like fallible and culpable individuals. So I think that if you get a moment to do that, and I think that just takes some time before you even choose to do that, but be aware of what you do.